I never planned to be in New Zealand. I came to New Zealand, never planned to become a football player and became a football player. Very, very tough. I didn't speak the language. So I went and did the trials. They gave me a job on a construction site. I got a call from Auckland City coach at that time, Ramon. Look, in December, we have the Club World Cup. Quit my job, washing dishes. That's when I go, my football journey begins.
The football fever that now is here in Auckland with Auckland FC.
I literally don't understand how club created from scratch have the campaign that they did this year phenomenal, because I thought they were going to struggle. He said, we have a good bunch of people in the change room. Professionalism is not what the contract says, it's your mindset. We were training 4 to 5 times a week, plus the gym sessions, and then you had to play. On the other side, you had to do your job. It's reality. When we went to the Club World Cup in 2014 with Auckland City and we finished third, I had a lot of offers, and the decision that I made was to go back to my city and play for the club that I was fan of. And that was the taste of professional football.
I think about my client as a football fan. I want to deliver as if this person was my absolute fan.
In South Africa, 70,000 people in the stadium, and I feel exactly the same as playing in New Zealand. I think happiness in itself is overrated. We are creating robots on the pitch, and we are missing that other part where kids can be free, where they can create their own rules.
But Ronaldinho to me is the encapsulation of what football should be.
I absolutely love the pressure in a penalty spot.
I never take a penalty. Welcome to the Melting News Podcast. Melting art and design, entrepreneurship, music, fashion, film, sports, gaming, and whatever's in between. We exist to showcase extraordinary people to inspire the next generation of creatives and leaders. My guest today is Emiliano Tadek, friend, football coach and player of Auckland United. We talked about his football journey, from washing dishes to playing in the FIFA World Cup. We discussed modern football, mindfulness, spirituality, mate, ego, and a lot more. If you love a great story and the beautiful game, this episode is for you. Emiliano Tadek, welcome to the Melting News Podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you very much, Etsy. It's pretty cool to be here. I was saying to you off camera how much you put into this, all the details is pretty incredible.
Thank you.
And I really hope one day you can actually show everyone around like how much thought you put into this. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Yeah, I wanted to create a space where, again, people like you come in, they feel comfortable. The people even watching the podcast, I've got a lot of comments in terms of like, man, you should do like a tour of your space, because I want to see like all those little toys that are there. I can't really tell on camera what they are. There's a bunch of fighters in there. There's like J Balvin. There's Biggie Smalls. El Chapulín Colorado.
You should.
said Chapulín Colorado.
El Chapulín Colorado. a classic South American.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of little things there that you can't really tell by the cameras there, because the white camera doesn't actually point to it. But maybe one day we'll do a little tour. But man, thank you for coming. I was super excited to talk to you because first of all, your story is incredible. And also I'm a big fan of football, man.
Yeah.
I grew up with my dream as a kid was to be a professional football player, like most kids, and I just love the sport. And most importantly, I love the pursuit of the sport, not just the sport itself, but the personality that it takes, the mental game, the physical game, the discipline, all of that thing I take from football and I apply to what I do. So I wanted to talk to you for that. You've had an incredible career. As I was researching you, I didn't know the amount of accomplishments you had. Because I knew overall you've been doing this for a long time, of course. And as a South American, you were sort of the hero of this team for a long time, Auckland City. But I had no idea all the accomplishments you had. So, man, first of all, congratulations on your career, because you've done some amazing stuff. Super happy to have you here. And I would like to start this conversation with your early life, because I think we should start from the beginning, from Argentina, Santiago del Estero, right? One of my favorite football players, and that's because of his relationship with the club, Omar Perez. He's from Santiago del Estero. Omar Perez is a legend of my club. He's literally a legend of my club. I have his shirt because my brother-in-law got it for me. And I had his frame, but the frame broke when we moved houses. But when I heard that you were from Santiago del Estero, I was like,
that's
the place.
That's the thing.
That's the place. Shout out to Omar Perez. I'm going to go to Colombia and I might do a podcast with him.
Cool.
So I'm
cool.
super excited about that. Absolute legend. Yeah, man. So let's go back to the beginning. If you can give people a bit of a brief story of your life, early beginnings, your relationship, how you come with football, your family, all of that.
Well, first of all, thanks for the words. It's very appreciated, and it's quite funny to hear that, you know, about my story and the way it happened, but like I don't see it that way.
Right.
It's hard to see it. It's hard to dimension what you go through or what you do in life, but at the same time, I always say I have one of my friends who's got a business company here in New Zealand, and he always goes, about football. And I guess it's because football is, you know, it's got a shiny thing, I guess. But I said to him, like, I think everyone has got a story to tell, and everyone has accomplished a lot of things in life. It just depends on, you know, the field that you are in and how you do that. And, you know, like when I look at you, I go, wow, like that's also an incredible story. When you were telling me how you set up and how you put all these things together, you go, wow, that's like, you know, that is also a cool story too.
Yes.
So, well, thank you for the words. And Santiago del Estero it's a pretty cool place. Yeah. It's very humble city. I fallen in love with football very, very, very early years of my life. I think I was 4. Yeah. When I'd been taken to a club to go play football.
Yeah.
And in my family, on my mom and dad's side, they're all like academic and people that go to university and studies and all this. And football it's not football, you know, football is not.
Yeah, it's just like, something you give to your kids so they can distract themselves.
Exactly. It's not what you should do in life, right? But I had an uncle who was part of a club, and at that time he was, you know, sitting in the board of a club, and he's the one always pushing and pushing and pushing. He gave me my first like football shirt when I was 4, and I remember that, and that's Club Atlético Mitre, and it's where I started my very early years of football. And I played for that club up until I was 16.
Oh wow.
I played in the academy. You know, in South America, if you have not managed to get into like a first division, top division club, you're not going to make it. Or it will be very hard.
That's correct.
To leave from football or play football at a professional level or whatever that might be, right?
Yeah.
Because there's like 100 million of us in South America. So anyway, and that was the time where I was like, okay, I had a few shots, and cool that you mentioned Omar Perez because he was at Boca Juniors at that time when I was probably 12, when I was about 12, 13. And that was the time where a lot of people from Santiago used to go to Boca Juniors and do some trials.
Right.
Obviously, I never got into the trials or I never got accepted. I did go to the trials. So I did go to Buenos Aires and did the Fushvan and the trials and whatnot. But I never got accepted or taken by Boca Juniors. And then I did it in another couple of clubs, but nothing happened. So then that was the time where you go, okay, well,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Let me ask you something. Do you always play in the same position?
No.
No. What was your like when you were in the academy? Because most football players, they start shifting positions.
Yeah.
Where did you started playing?
In the academy, I always play as a winger.
Okay, like on the right-hand side?
On the right-hand side, yes. At that time, there was not such a thing as playing as on the left side to cut inside and shoot and all these things, right?
Yeah.
So, I was playing as a winger, and that's what I remember.
Okay.
And I always played in there, sometimes in the middle, sort of like the Argentinian number 10.
Right. Okay.
So I played a few games or maybe for a lot of games in that position, but always up front.
Back in the day, it wasn't as common, but today you see a lot of stories of players that in that when they go through the trials at the beginning of the stages, they might sometimes shift positions just because Casemiro, I think, is an example of that. Used to play in a different position, and when he came to the trials, he's like, all the people that were in his position, they were too good. So he's like, okay, well, let me trial as a CDM, defensive midfielder, and try to fit. And then he fitted in there, and then that's where his career sort of shaped up. So it's quite interesting because obviously your ability to score goals is ridiculous. But I wonder if you ever, I don't know if you know Mario Alberto Yepes. He was a striker.
Yes. Yeah. I
Right?
played against him. No.
He used to play as a striker.
As a striker, yeah.
And then he became a centre back. So these sort of stories are quite interesting. That's why sorry about that. I just wanted to know if you shaped in any sort of way, but you always sort of been attacking as an attacking player.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
yes.
cool.
With their positions and how people realize what positions they are, usually happens around when you are 13 to 17, more or less. And it also depends on one coach that one day comes and realizes actually what position you are because of the way you move, how is your body shape, your range of motions. There's a lot of things that pretty much, I don't know, someone that probably watches or does a lot of football, coaches, will go, you are...
This type. My brother-in-law, he's never seen me play football. And when he said, you play football, eh? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you're a right back, right? And I was like, how do you know that? And I was like, I just looked at you and I knew that you were a right back. And I was like, what? People don't realize that, but it's exactly what you're saying. Just the shape of your body, you can look at your legs and you go, okay, this guy is this position. Yeah. And that blew my mind, man. And he started breaking it down to me. He's like, look, if you look for these personality traits, that guy's gonna be a goalkeeper. That guy's gonna. I was like, whoa.
Goalkeeper. You touch a sensitive place. The goalkeepers are weird. The goalkeepers are those type of people that you go.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Personalities. Goalkeepers are very special people.
Very special. Very special. I love them though. I love them.
Yeah, of course.
I think I had a very cool relationship with most of the goalkeepers that I share changing room with.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but so they for the people that don't know much about football, they don't spend time in a change room.
Yeah,
goalkeepers are one of the weirdest.
Yeah. And also he, for example, mentioned something that also blew my mind. I never thought about it. He said something about the fact that if you look at our best strikers, for example, I'm talking Colombia, all the best strikers in Colombia come from the Caribbean region.
Okay.
And it's because of their personality. They need to be able to, oh, thank you very much. Just showing this to the camera. Sharing a mate with Emiliano Tade. This is amazing.
Mate is pretty cool. Mate is, it is
it's
something.
So good, man.
Yes.
It's so good.
It's not just about the taste, obviously. It's about like everything that represents the mate and the benefits and all that.
And the whole communal part of it is so beautiful as well. Yeah. Delicious. And so he was saying that to me. He's like, the people that they need to have a very specific mindset to be able to make the right decision in microseconds inside in a goal scoring opportunity. And because of the people from the Caribbean, they live this lifestyle of relaxation and they have this sort of very relaxed mindset. That's why most of the killers from Colombia come from that part of the world. And I was like, fuck, I never thought of that.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
All of them, the best goal scoring strikers we have come from that region. Defending midfielders, they mainly come from the central region of Colombia. All of these things blew my mind. I'm like, wait, what a minute. And it's because of these personality traits that get embedded into the way a player, not just the body, but the way that the mentality of how they approach the game, keeping calm, stuff like that.
It might be educational part as well, some
lifestyle, correct.
Lifestyle, the educational systems that you are in.
Yes.
It might be like everything, obviously having an impact in a different ways. But yeah, cool.
It's very interesting. Anyway, sorry to divert, but I found that mind-blowing. And you were talking about how they knew. I was like, man, people that don't watch football, they don't really know all these things. And the in and outs of, like you said, a dressing room and actually a coach and how they can identify many of these things as they just look at a player.
Like over the years, I think I played in different systems and different positions. And I think it was all due sometimes to the coach, sometimes because of the system. You have to fit in.
Yeah.
But usually, I always been playing up front.
And then what happens after that?
And then, like every teenager, it's 16. It's the years that you go, okay, it's your last 2 years of like school, high school, whatever. Yeah. And you dedicate your life to the social part, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Where it's like, friends and partying and whatnot. Yeah, of course, you start exploring and experimenting what adult's life
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
like, right? And that's the time where also you got to start thinking about what you're going to do next,
Yeah.
and university and what it comes with that, and what you're going to do, and all that. So and that's the part that's the point where I decided to stop playing football completely. And completely I mean for a club.
Yeah.
But in South America, as you know, you never stop playing
never
football.
stop playing football.
You never stop playing football. You play with your friends, you play with like whoever just gives you a call, you go and enter different tournaments, amateur tournaments, and this and that. Like football is everywhere. And you also watch a lot of football, which is as well very important. So then, finished high school, went to study university. I studied law, and football at the same time connected me to come to New Zealand, but was never the intention either. It was one of those days. It was one of those days that my best friend's cousin was organizing a game, like just a football game, 11v11. And in South America, you bring your team, someone brings their team, and then maybe you put a bet in there, like the losers pays for for whatever,
food or whatever,
for food or one of those things and whatnot. So it was one of those games where I just got invited by a third party. Like I don't even know who was there. Like I only knew a few people. I was doing my laces, putting the boots on and whatnot. And I overheard a conversation of these two guys next to me. And one of them lives in New Zealand, Martin Pereira. He was talking about this working holiday visa, like what you can do in New Zealand. And there's a lot of opportunities and things like that. So when you hear the word opportunities and living overseas, like all these things for South American people, it's pretty rare. So I don't know what exactly has sparked in my mind that I go, what is this, right? So anyway, I finished the game and I got home and I started researching about what's New Zealand like? What do they do? Why is there so many opportunities? And what's a working holiday visa? And how do I get there? Anyway, so then I got his messenger at that time.
That's right.
Messenger.
Yeah, because we're talking like you've been here for a long time. 2006 or 5 or something?
This is 2009.
Oh, 2009.
2009. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 2009. And I got his messenger by someone, and I just sent him a message, add him to whatever. I don't even remember how that workflow of that was, but I added him or whatever. I sent him a message, and then we started chatting, and then he helped me out a lot in that. And he was kind of like my mentor when it comes to come to New Zealand and the working holiday visa and all that. And and then a few months later, I applied for the visa, and I just flew over with no English at all whatsoever.
So wait, let me ask you 2 questions. Why law?
Why law? I haven't been asked that question in a long time. I think it was about knowing a little bit about everything rather than, like, for example, my mom and my dad are architects. And being an architect, you know a lot about architecture and buildings and whatnot. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I thought studying law is kind of like you need to know a little bit of a lot of different fields.
Okay, I see.
And that's probably, and I've never been a person that will do things, with my
with the hands or something,
with my hands and things like that. So, and
that's essentially it.
Yeah, I came across to a lawyer at that time that I had a conversation with, and he seemed to be pretty cool, and he sort of like sparked that idea, and I was like, okay, that could be something that I'll be really interested in, and then also the sense of fairness, justice. There's a little bit of that as well.
Oh, okay. And then so you come to New Zealand. How old were you at that time?
I was 21.
21 years old.
21.
You arrived in New Zealand, no English. What are you doing here? Like, what is that? What happens? Like, what do you start doing?
Oh, the first one was at the airport, Auckland. When I arrived to Auckland, and I had to catch a flight to go to Wellington.
Okay.
Because my thought process was, okay, where do I go? Oh, I go to the capital, right? Like that's where that's where you start, right? Okay, so anyway, and also Martin was there, who was gonna give me a hand and settling in and stuff. So so I go to the airport, and obviously you have to change from the international to the domestic.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how.
Is this your first time flying?
First time flying overseas as well.
Wow,
ever.
okay.
And not English. And anyway, so someone, I think, pointed at me those blue-green lines outside the airport that connects, the international with the domestic. Yeah. And I remember I was like, I can't miss this. And I was like walking like down literally on that line to okay, I don't need to miss the flight because I don't know what's going to happen. So anyway, then I go to Wellington, and it was very, very tough. Very tough first few months with not being able to find a job because obviously I didn't speak the language, and it was hard to communicate or go somewhere or knock on some doors. Also, you don't know anyone.
Yeah.
So I did a few one of those casual jobs, like 1 day's job, like you're covering someone. And then Martin was playing for Lower Hutt at that time, and Lower Hutt was in the past used to be like Winter League and Summer League, and so Lower Hutt was like in the first division of Winter League.
Yeah.
So I went and did the trials.
But this is just for fun, right?
It's just for fun. And also like football in general, it gives you that sense of community, right? Like,
that's right.
Like it's cool. It's another way of socializing and learn the language and get into and feel part of the culture somehow, right?
Yeah.
So I did a trial. And they sort of accepted me, but I was asking the club if they can give me a hand on, finding a job or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
I was at the club for like a month and nothing was happening, nothing was moving. And then I thought, I'm running out of money and then, all my savings and all that. So then I decided to go to Blenheim to pick to
pick fruits and stuff. That's right.
Fruit picking and stuff. And a few days or a week before I was about to do that, I met a coach that was coaching second division in winter in Wellington United in Wellington. Okay. And he said, come to do a trials and in my club. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I'll give it a go. But I said, look, I have no money. I have nothing. I have no savings, and I'm mean to go to to the South Island in a week. And he's like, maybe we can give you a hand on something here, and see what we can do. So I went to the trials. They really liked me. They want me to stay, and they gave me a job for like 3 weeks on a construction site. And I was like, okay, well at least. I'll do something here, and then who knows where is this going to take. I didn't want to go to South Island, literally. I didn't want to go. I just wanted to be, I'm more of a city person. So anyway, and then from there, things started to escalate. Then I started playing for Wellington United. Then after those 3 weeks, I couldn't find a job. They couldn't find a job until I found something to cover another Argentinian that was washing dishes at a cafe in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, that's my thing. For now, I'll give it a go. And then, so I found that job that was pretty stable, like, the office hours. And then that's it. Then I started playing football for Wellington United and living the working holiday backpacker lifestyle.
Wow, dude. Holy shit. That's incredible, man. And so wait, but you're not going to English school or anything like this?
No.
You're learning English as you go on these jobs?
as you go.
Oh, wow.
When I look back, I don't even remember things. I don't even remember how how did that happen? Or, like, do you have memories or?
I do. Yeah, I do remember how I started. For me as well, I went to high school actually.
Oh, okay.
Because I finished high school in Colombia.
Yeah.
But then I came here, and you know how we finish high school at year like 11? I don't know if in Argentina it's the same, but
Yeah.
in Colombia we finished high school year 11. I was 16 years old, came here, and the cheapest way to learn English for me was going to a high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to a high school. I don't speak a word of English, and I'm there with a bunch of teenagers. It was
like
the
a
worst.
goalkeeper in a changing room.
Yeah, and it was bad, man. I couldn't figure it out, and I was like, you know what? I told my dad, look, maybe just pay for English school for like 2 months because it was too expensive, and I will learn English in 2 months. I guarantee you, and I did.
Yeah.
And then after that, I started working as a gardener or whatever, and that's how I learned English. Like from school, got like the core of it, and then working as a gardener, doing all these different things. That's how, because my goal was to learn enough English so that I could go to uni.
Okay.
Because I was 16 years old, right? I was 17 pretty much at that time, but that was the goal. The goal was to get into university, so my English needed to be good enough, and I couldn't spend too long learning English.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. But I do remember a lot of the things at that time.
I don't have memories of like how did I learn certain like words or grammar. Or,
I guess it's because you're like in the spike of the moment. Just every day you're doing something and you're going to these places.
And I think like, I wasn't shy
right
to make mistakes either. Like I couldn't care less if I was making a mistake.
Yeah.
And I had no fear or sense of embarrassment or anything. I was just like trying. If I made a mistake or the other person didn't understand, I was like,
same.
Okay, well then I try another, and then you go sign language, right? Like then
exactly.
you start, and for us, we do move the hands a lot.
We are very emotive, like
exactly. So, there's only one situation I remember when someone. This is very very early. Someone asked me, "Oh, do you miss your family?" I remember exactly that question.
Okay.
But I didn't know what it means. And I'm trying to unpack word by word. What is miss? And I asked like, oh, miss? What's miss, right? And the other person was trying to explain what is miss. I don't know. I understand even less, right? and I don't know. And I'm trying to find something in my brain about what the word miss is.
Yeah.
And you know what came to my mind?
What?
This is I feel embarrassed of. The Miss Universe contest.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, are you talking about what? Like I couldn't understand that Miss is coming from Miss Universe, right? Like that's where my brain went, right? And I was like, I don't even know how the conversation even ended after that. I have no idea, but that particular situation or moment got stuck in my mind for whatever reason. So,
oh man, we have situations like that. To me, something like that very similar happened. When I was in high school, I couldn't speak a word of English, right? But because I was from Colombia, that caught a lot of people's attention, especially kids, right? They've been watching movies and they're like, "Oh, this guy's dangerous." Which was a good thing for me because they didn't bully me a lot. But what it meant is they would invite me to do random shit and I didn't understand. So this is a funny story. I had no friends, obviously. But because I was from Colombia, they're like, oh, you should put him in the football team. Surely he's good. And I was actually better than most kids. Yeah. And I go into a football pitch and I start playing. And I go, oh shit, these guys actually are really bad.
Okay.
And then I suddenly see one guy and then we start playing together like passes and I'm like, oh, this guy know what's up. Like we started playing a couple of, you just know by movements, right? You just pass the ball and I was like, oh, this guy knows how to play. Guy comes over to me and he goes, are you South American? And I was like, yes. I said, I'm Brazilian.
Yeah, no wonder.
And then I was like, oh, that makes sense. So that guy became my translator. So he knew a lot of English. So he would speak to me in Portuguese, so we can kind of communicate.
Yeah.
But then I would have people coming over to me and ask me things. And at that time, this is like a couple of weeks I'm into the country. Somebody asked me to join their gang, and all I could do, every time they said, I was like, oh yes.
Yes,
You know,
yes was one of my favorite words
It's
at that
just-
time.
they tell you shit and you're like, yes, and
Yes.
even though you don't understand.
Yeah.
And that happened, bro. Somebody came and they say something, and I was like, oh yes, yes. And the Brazilian guy's like, no,
No, yeah.
no. You know, it's like, and then the guy he explained something, and then he explained that to me. He's like, man, he was asking you if you wanted to join their gang, and I was like, oh shit, you can't say yes to everything, you know.
But we always say yes.
But we
yes,
just
yes
say-
was probably one of my favorite words at that
Exactly.
time.
Yeah. So it's always all those embarrassing stories that all immigrants have. But man, that's amazing. So tell us what happens after that. So you start playing for Wellington, and then you're washing dishes on the side. How do you then start making money or with football, or like get this as a full-time job? Like how does that happen in New Zealand?
No, to get a full-time job in football in New Zealand,
It's impossible, isn't
It's
it?
impossible.
Yeah.
What happened was I was really enjoying my time with Wellington United, and I think I finished like Golden Boot in my first year for the club, and then you had the summer league.
Oh,
right?
that's right. That's right.
Like franchises used to be with only a few clubs for around the country, and they pick the best players and stuff. So I played for Team Wellington that year.
Yeah.
And I scored like quite a few goals for the amount of games that we played. And that caught a lot of attention in a lot of clubs as well. Even like First Division Winter League called me to join the clubs and play the following season and whatnot. And at that time, I don't know, I felt like I wanted to be loyal and stay at Wellington United, because they were the ones that helped me, to stay in Wellington and play football, and also you're born.
You have relationships.
Yeah,
and
your
stuff,
relationship. You're formed with the club, the people in there. So I was like, look, I said no to all those other clubs, and I stayed playing for Wellington United one more season. And that was the time where midway, I got a call from Auckland City coach at that time, Ramon, saying that he would like me to come up to Auckland and play for Auckland City. And it was about July. And he was like, look, in December, we have the Club World Cup and we play in Japan. And I'm like, what the hell is going on in here, right? That was probably one of my first moments where I was like, what is going on, right? Like, what is happening around here? And how did that happen at the same time? And without even thinking about it, obviously I said yes. And I finished that season with Wellington United. We got promoted to the top division, like pretty cool as well. And then in about September is when I quit my job, obviously washing dishes. Probably have the record in that restaurant, like a year and a half washing dishes. I absolutely loved it.
Oh,
I have
did
to
you?
say, I loved it. They tried for many times to put me as a barista, to put me like as a waitress,
Bartender.
and like do a lot of
Everything.
things in there. And I try. I gave it a go, like for one day, and I was like, no, I don't like it. I like washing the dishes there. It was my meditative state. I was just alone. I was on my own time. It's in my own schedule. And anyway, that's when I came up to Auckland, and that's when I go, my football journey begins.
Wow.
It's in there. That's where the football journey begins.
Wow. Now let me ask you this: when you get approached by a club in New Zealand, is there any sort of monetary incentive or anything like that? Like, okay, cool, you get to play for Auckland City. Do they pay you like part time? How does that work?
No. You only get expenses by playing football.
So they basically pay you for your accommodation?
No. Expenses meaning the petrol that you spend and
is that right?
Like the gym, like the gym and all these things, and then what happens is you get jobs within the club by coaching in the academy,
I see.
or helping out the club, and so all the club have sponsors and connections that you can go and work in those places.
I see.
So it's more a sense of community than the actual football that we know that everyone is thinking that you are here getting 1.5 million and driving a Ferrari, right? It. So that is how football is run in New Zealand.
I see.
Yeah, unless obviously you play now for Auckland FC or the Phoenix, right? It's a professional club, but they're not from New Zealand at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
The franchise are playing in Australia, but anyway.
Oh, I see. That's very interesting. I wanted to ask you about that because a lot of people, like, again, if you South America or whatever, you play for this club or whatever, and you play in the World Cup, and like, oh man, these guys are. But it's like, nah, man, like the amount of money that you actually making is nothing. Like, there's not a lot of money to be made in there. So that's very interesting that you.
Well, you gotta work, right?
Yeah, you gotta work. Exactly.
You gotta work on the side, or some players don't get a job, or they don't get employed by the club.
Yeah.
They have their own jobs.
That's right.
Outside, like when I was playing for Team Wellington, I was washing dishes, very happy.
Yeah.
And like those things happen, but I think that what is critical here is to understand what professional is and what semi-professional and what amateur football is, right? And at the same time, that is from, let's put it this way, from a legal point of view. Right. One thing is what is professional, because when you have a professional contract, you say you have to have certain requirements and liabilities and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, when you're amateur, it's pretty much amateur. So then you get paid like the expenses, right? But I've been I've seen in situations where it's called professional football, because they have these sort of like standards and contracts and whatnot, and the league is professional. But the amount of money they get is very, very little. Like, they can't live.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's called professional. And yet, the mentality is the other thing, right? The mindset, the professionalism is something that I always speak about in New Zealand. Professionalism is not, it's not your contract. It's not what the contract says. It's your mindset. And at Auckland City at that time, when I first arrived, it was very, very professional. Very professional. We were training at that time 4 to 5 times a week, plus the gym sessions, and then you had to play.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, but then on the other side, you had to do your job.
You
had to work.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And nowadays, in a lot of the teams and clubs that I see and that I talk to other people and stuff, it's very similar.
Wow.
But then I play professionally, and I didn't see that much mentality in a lot of people. And I remember being either in Argentina or South Africa where I played professionally, and I remember having conversations to a few of them and said, "You're not professional, mate. You're literally not professional." One thing is it's being professional and in an amateur level or amateur league, and another thing is being non-professional in a professional environment. So and that's something that people have a misconception. That come like overseas, that people that come from overseas, that go, "Oh, New Zealand, very easy league, and it's a walk in the park. It's just like what did they do? They don't even go to the Club World Cup or to the World Cups and all this. They're good only at rugby," and they come here. And they realize what actually New Zealand football is.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's reality.
Right. Wow, bro. That's very. I love how you put that about what professional actually means, because that's actually very, very true.
Yeah, it's a mindset, right?
Yeah,
it's a mindset.
right.
But in football, it gets a lot more exponential, I guess, because of the environment where you are, but don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people or players that still, I'm sure I've done that in some time in my football career in New Zealand as well, where I wasn't as professional.
Right.
Like you let yourself go, or you think that, you might not be playing that much, and that's the year when you go, or maybe that's, you just let yourself go, and that's not a professional mindset, right?
That's right.
So, yeah.
That's right. Okay. So you get to Auckland. I was going to do that for you, but I don't want to ruin it, because I know it's like you serve for me and I serve for you, but I wouldn't be as good at doing that. So
yes, and I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you know the rituals. You know what it means. It's your
mate. So But anyways, so you get to Auckland, and then you were washing dishes in Wellington. What do you do here?
So then I started at Auckland City. I was doing a lot of coaching.
Okay.
At the academy, and then is when you start playing football.
Right.
So that was pretty much like what your job is,
Right.
and what you do.
So that became your full-time job was to play, and then you coach.
Yeah, but then I always been doing like things on the side.
Yeah. So what was you doing on the side?
Or like other sort of like jobs that you get like casual, for example. I did housekeeping in hotels. I did work at a bar, or what, not a bar, a cafe.
Right.
I did painting. I did things in construction, and this friend that I talked to you at the beginning that has a cleaning company. I used to go with him every time he needed someone, or I would just ask him for like casual jobs and stuff, just to top it up or to do something as like outside of football, because I don't know, I found it very important that, or at least that's what works in my personality, that I need always to do something outside of football.
Oh, okay, amazing, dude. And let's talk about, because I know you play in South Africa as well. Obviously, gonna be very different. I'm actually very curious to know what that was like. But before we talked about that, just talk us through the lead up to getting into that position.
What happened, South Africa?
Yeah, what happened to the point where you actually now flying to another country to play football as well? And that might have been a trippy thing, because like you said at the beginning, I love how you said, like, what is going on here? Like, I came here for this working holiday, now I'm playing football for these different clubs. And what was going through your mind at that time? Like, what were you thinking? Like, were you kind of your passion for football and making it professional, was that reignited at some level by getting all this validation and you scoring a lot of goals and things are sort of working out? People are going, man, we want you to play for us. Did that sort of reignited that fire, or?
Yes and no. I think it goes. I think playing the first Club World Cup was in 2011. It was probably the first sort of call, or that ignite that, as you say, that fire about playing football. But it was never the intention at that time to go overseas and made it like a professional career.
Yeah,
still had that backpacker mentality, like working and just having the overseas experience, right? That was always the my curiosity at that time.
Oh, I see. That's very interesting.
That was the thing. That's what I wanted to do.
Having that was at the core of your experience, pretty much.
Like the overseas experience, learning a new language, living in another culture, like traveling around. Yeah. As soon as I had a couple of days off or a week off or the 2 months or whatever, I would just travel somewhere.
Yeah.
Like as a backpacker, and then it was like camping, it was like sleeping in the car, like all these bits, right?
Yeah.
But playing the first Club World Cup was kind of like, oh, this is cool, like this is good, and maybe I can do something about it, but not to play overseas again. It was more about a decision to go, okay, I can dedicate a little bit more, be a little bit more, as I said, like professional.
Right, I see.
In football, that will allow me later on to do these trips, go to Asia, go to other cultures and travel around, but as a backpacker. Then a pivot moment was when we went to the Club World Cup in 2014 with Auckland City in Morocco, and we finished third.
Yeah.
So that was the moment in, I would say, in my football career, because straight after that, I had a lot of offers to go play football overseas. Finished third from where we're coming from was a big, it was a big achievement, not only for Auckland City, but also for the country, right?
Yeah.
So, and I had a lot of offers to go play overseas and stuff. And the decision that I made at that time was to go back to my city, Santiago del Estero, and play for the club that I was fan of when I grew up and the club that I played in my academy growing up. Yeah, so I went to Argentina and I played professionally there. And that was the taste of professional football.
Right.
2-3 years later, well, after I played in Santiago in Argentina, I went back to New Zealand, and I was here for like a year or so, and I had someone walking up to me after one of their first games when I went back from Argentina to tell me, hey, will you be interested to go in South Africa to play football? And I was like, yeah, sure. And that guy was a contact who became my agent in South Africa.
Okay.
And I was scoring a lot of goals, and then I finished Golden Boot in that season, and that's when I got the call from South Africa to say, hey, do you want to come here to play football? And I didn't even think about it. I said yes. Immediately.
What was the thought process? Walk me through your mind as that offer came through. What were you thinking? Were you thinking, man, this is another opportunity to experience culture? This is another?
It was that. It was an element of that. It was an element to live in another country.
Yeah.
But I also been in South Africa 2 years before that, and I've fallen in love with the country. And I went to Cape Town at that time.
Okay.
I loved the culture. I loved the people. I loved everything about it. I didn't know anything about football in South Africa, but about the culture. So again, I was like, it was a combination of everything that I'm just talking about, like traveling, playing football, learning it was a little bit of learning a new language, and the experience of being in another country and all that. So I said yes without thinking. And a month later, I moved to South Africa.
Bro, walk me through the experience of going into these different locker rooms, because as a football, I never played professional, semi-professional like this, but there's always this initial thing when you go into a different club of building that relationship with your new teammates, which is very important, right? What is your personality like in that sort of environment? Like, do you always come in, like, what type of person are you in the locker room? That's what I'm trying to get to. Like, are you easy to or do you a little bit shy? Because I'm a bit like that. Like, I am quite open and friendly, but there are certain environments that could be quite hostile, and I feel a bit like intimidated. And sometimes when you're in a locker room and you go into there, and then suddenly they see, oh, this guy might be taking my position, I'm going to the bench. It's quite a hostile environment potentially.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. It could be.
Mm-hmm. Now that happens for amateur. Now I can only imagine what would happen if this guy comes in, he's actually from another country, and he's now here with us. Like, I think a lot of people underestimate that part of football and in any sport in general. But just like when you have work relationship with your colleagues, same sort of thing. You have to ease in, bond, create relationships. Then you have to create a relationship with your coach, which is essential if you want to play, right? You could be a really good player, but if the coach doesn't believe in you, doesn't have a good relationship with you, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
So walk us through to try to get a sense of who you are in that particular environment, in the locker room, in the football environment, in this sort of professional environment. What type of person are you? How do you bond? How do you create relationships?
I think it's not much difference to what we are doing right now.
Okay.
Right? That's one thing. The other thing is, over the years, you learn that there's a lot of non-written rules in a change room. For example, for the people that don't know, you have your spot.
Yeah.
Right? You can't move from your spot. That's your spot in the change room. Whether you have your name up there or you don't have your name or your number. Like, I've been in change room where it's just a hook and then that's it. Like, but that's your spot, and this is Edsy's spot. That's it. And there's other change room where you have your number, and then it's pretty simple, right? So when you come to a change room, you need to understand that this is not your place, regardless of how big of a player you are.
Right. That's a very good point.
You need to respect other people's time in the club, space, sports, whatever. So it's a very cool question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before, surprisingly. And I find it like a very, very cool question. And I don't know, I think my personality over the years changed, of course, because of age, experience and stuff. It's not the same as being the 22, 23,
That's
24 years old. You're one of the youngsters and you are just, you are the yes sir type of thing.
Yeah, that's right.
You get a spot and then you just sit there, and then you're born with the people around you and whatnot. And then obviously then it's when after a few months or after a few weeks or whatever, your personality starts to shine.
Yeah.
Just put it that way, and then you start expressing yourself, and then yes, I'm very easy to talk to. Like I'm very approachable, or that's what I think. Yeah, it's kind of like I get along well and I'm always trying to joke a little bit. Sometimes there's times to be serious, sometimes time to be the silly one or the clown. Yeah, so that's probably
Okay.
a little bit on how to ease into change rooms. It's not much different to the corporate world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always speak to people that, are not in the football field, and they always go, oh, like, how does that one? I go, it's exactly the same as the corporate world. If you're coming into, let's say you work in tech and you come into a team and you are and you are the designer in your team, but then everyone's got a way to work. Everyone has got their own place at their own desk, and then suddenly you come in and then you get there early and then you take someone else's desk. What do you think that person is going to feel, right? Or the first day you arrive, you come in and then you pack your stuff in the fridge, and then you make a coffee for yourself, and then you just like walk like you are the CEO, right? So it's exactly the same in football. But I think in football sometimes it gets a lot more exponential.
Yes. I was gonna go on that.
I guess it's because of the pressure.
Yes.
I guess it's because of the performance. I guess it's because what happens in the athlete's mind.
Yeah.
Let's say one day you're working at an office and then you make a mistake, but it's not that much of a mistake. But then you can solve, and then you have 2 weeks to solve that problem.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Like in football, you have to.
It's like it's just dire consequences to many of the things, right? And you could have a relationship, and also emotions like run a lot higher.
Yes.
Because you could have a good relationship with a teammate, but in the heat of the moment of a game, you could make a mistake that could cause the game, and there could be a lot of emotions that get shown, and you have to have the composure you can see it in players that have been doing it for a long time. They have the composure to pick them up or whatever and not let that demotivate the entire team. But the emotions are very high, right? The pressure, like you say, is very high. It's not like a corporate thing where, I guess in a startup maybe when you have...
and the corporate happens when you have a deadline, let's say.
Yeah. Like if you're a startup and this little thing could potentially have an exponential effect.
So I always say in a corporate world, it's like imagine having those deadlines every week or every 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Like those deadlines that you have to deliver.
Yeah, that's right.
That your that your app has to go live every 2-3 days, every week, right? Yeah. So that's a little bit of how I compare, but and yet it's not a comparison. So
I guess you explained that right though. It's exponential. So in football and sports in general, not just football, those consequences just become a lot more. It's a lot higher. The expectation could be the same to perform if you are in a high performing team, but I guess it's just the pressure. And I was going to ask you is about next thing I wanna touch on is because of, again, for me this is a thing that I've learned a lot from athletes, man. And I talk to football players, I talk to fighters, and it just blows my mind. It's about dealing with pressure and adversity, because that's again. When you're working even the type of jobs I do, you deal with adversity all the time. It's just in different ways, right? Like I'm a designer. And design is a very complicated thing because it's a subjective thing, right?
Yes.
If I tell you, Emiliano, I don't like your tattoos, and you go, well, I like them.
Yeah, it's your problem.
It's my problem, not yours.
Good on you.
You know what I mean? So it's a subjective thing, and therefore, a lot of the times it could get quite emotional. You have to navigate that as a designer. Right. So you have to learn how to deal with a lot of those adversities. Sometimes you want to implement some things, whatever. My point is, how do you navigate adversity, especially in such a emotionally packed environment? Here's one thing. When you're a company, right, you're corporate or whatever, you have clients, but that's nowhere near. They're nowhere near as invested as a bloody football fan. That's one thing that I always look at for, because when I approach design or a business, because I am now in like a lead position in design, I almost always think about it that way. I think about my client as a football fan, not as a regular customer. I was like, my app doesn't work. Whatever. They close it. They're not as frustrated as the football fan that
if you miss a chance,
that has that thing, that fire, and you only know it when you're a fan. That's one thing I always tell my wife. She, despite of her family being a football family, she doesn't have that because her brother played for many clubs, so she doesn't have a club.
Yeah.
But if you have a club, you have that fire in you. Like you want your team to do really well, like that. And that's how I feel about the work that I do. Is I want to deliver as if this person was my absolute fan.
Yeah. Yes.
So that always impresses me as a in the way that you approach a work, which is what footballers do, right? Go out there and perform for hundreds of thousands of people. That's crazy if you think about it that way, right? The amount of pressure. How do you deal with of course, like in the type of work that you're doing, it's not at the same level, but still, it's the pressure to perform.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you go to the World Cup, that's the whole country that is looking at these guys for, and to deliver a third place. Still amazing, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with those adversities and emotions in the field?
To me, it wasn't that much about the amount of people that watch.
Okay.
I think it's an individual mental battle.
Yeah, that's right. That's also another.
Like
Like the relationship with yourself as well. At that
yes,
point.
like for example, in New Zealand, as you know, not many people come to watch the game today.
Correct.
But a lot of people do watch football, and everyone knows what is happening in football. Like in South Africa, playing for Mamelodi Sundowns, you have 60,000 people, 70,000 people in the stadium, and I feel exactly the same as playing in New Zealand. And it's not about the amount of people. It's about the way you deal with those things. There's a lot of players in New Zealand that also suffer from that pressure. But there's at the same time a lot of people that are playing not only in South Africa but in other countries, or in Argentina, for example, that football is next level mental, and yet they do suffer. But there's other people that don't, right? So it is about it's a combination of a lot of things. I'm not an expert on the field. I can only speak from my experience.
Yeah.
To me, meditation has been my anchor.
Okay.
And this
That's cool.
meditation and reading about it, reading about what's happening in the brain, what from a scientific point of view, as well as from people that talk about emotions and meditation and mindfulness and however people want to put it. Spirituality as well has helped me a lot to deal with these things, and then the people that you have around. It's also like critical. And then I'm not sure. I have not been in a position in my career that I went, oh wow, like I'm suffering from pressure, or I have the stress to perform, or I knew there was a lot of moments where I knew I had to perform, of course, and you can feel sometimes that there's a lot of games that have a lot more pressure than others, yes, but I don't think I went through like really bad times.
Okay, I see.
In my career.
Right. And what do you attribute that to? Just this sort of relationship that you have in terms of the way that you see them?
Maybe if I have to unpack, I will put the people that I had around. I'm not a person that has 100 million friends. I always had like a few handfuls of friends and close people.
Yeah.
To me, my family was another part. And then the work ethics does give you a lot. Like I will punish myself when we lost, for example, or when I didn't perform well, and I will go to the gym maybe more, or I will go for a run. That's probably when I was younger, not now, but now it's different ways of punishment. And then straight away you start thinking about the next game and the next game. And then meditation was something that helped me understand myself. Reading books about that topic, not only about meditation, but understanding like the human behaviors, the brain, what emotions are, where is all this coming from, and reading a lot about it or listening to podcasts and all this helped me understand the situation and myself on those particular moments. So when I started feeling that heat, or the pressure, it's when I go a lot inwards,
right?
And I take time alone, and I spend a lot of time alone, and I probably don't socialize at that time, or I decide not to socialize at that time, and I prefer to go inwards. Yoga was
yeah.
another one, and that I did for many years, and I still do. I even took the course, and I became a yoga teacher.
Oh, wow.
Eating well, sleeping, the nutrition,
Having
the
a good
training.
relationship with your body.
Yeah, but then I did the things that also, for a lot of people or football players nowadays, they go, "Oh, that's a little bit whooshy." But journaling, for example, helped me a lot.
Oh, yeah.
All these things, when you put them all together, you process your everything that is going on in your mind. You process everything that is happening in your life and your emotions and stuff, and then you learn how to detach from them, and then when the game comes, it's pretty much you make your routines and your habits and stuff, and then you just go play.
Just be in the present, essentially. That's just be more in the present.
Yeah, but I don't want to sound like a cliche, like
No, but I think you're totally right, man. I think you're totally right. I think there's a I don't know if he's gonna be listening to this, but one of the reasons why I play for the club I play is because of this Argentinian guy. He's the reason why I play for that. His name is Kike, and he sometimes throws like a simple thing that just makes you think a lot. Okay. And one day he mentioned that he's like, don't worry about things that could happen tomorrow. Just live in the present moment. Like, people worrying about, oh, what if tomorrow this happens? It's like, don't worry about that. There's no reason to. It's just live in the present moment a little bit more, detach yourself, because that creates a lot of anxiety. And I remember he's amazing, and he's like pretty much our coach as well. And I love the way he approaches even every single game. He all the time talks about, us as a team, blah, blah, blah. But that thing that you just mentioned about being in the present moment, writing everything that's going through your mind, to try to uncover all of these things that could potentially. And if once you untangle them, it's probably a lot easier to deal with all of the things that could potentially happen externally.
Yeah, you're right. And I always say we are human beings, we are people. Yeah. And then you become a football player.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this. And I don't ask this very often, but I think you'll be a good person to ask this. What does happiness mean to you?
Happiness is not a state of mind. And I think happiness in itself is overrated, because everything in life, I think they go in cycles. So then when you're not happy with what you are, it's what I always ask.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're not happy, then what are you sad? And then I don't attribute sadness to something negative either. Sadness is also important, or from my point of view, that sadness is also very important in life.
Yes.
To me, happiness is a peace of mind. That's how I relate happiness with peace of mind.
Okay, I see. Let me ask you, you mentioned, actually, before I forget that, you mentioned spirituality, which is a very interesting word.
Yeah.
Because spirituality could mean
a lot of things.
A lot of different things, right? And we come from a culture that is very religious, for example. So I wanted to ask you, what does spirituality mean? Like when you say that, what does that mean?
A long time ago, I came across to a definition of spirituality that resonated with me, and it blew my mind, as simple as possible. And spirituality to me is not sitting on a cave or with an orange rope and then being all meditating all day, right? That's not spirituality to me. Also, spirituality is it's not being in the woo world all the time either, right? And which is usually a lot of that's the connotation that a lot of people give to.
Yeah,
right.
Yes, that's great.
So to me, spirituality is, I split the word and it goes spy and ritual. You are a spy of your rituals. And that blew my mind. And that's the word spiritual, right? So what it means is when you are a spy of your rituals, because we have a lot of rituals, the word spirituality comes from a long time ago, right? With everything that you do is a ritual. When you wake up, First thing a lot of people do, well, what I do is I go, you wash your face or you have a shower, you brush your teeth and you have your cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And then you have breakfast, right? And that's my routine in the morning. We call it routine, but that like a long time, ancient time, that was a ritual.
Yeah.
Those were your rituals. So when you are a spy of your rituals, means that you are observing yourself. Therefore, you are living in the present moment. Therefore, you are detached from what you do, and you are actually an observant.
Okay.
So ultimately, spirituality means to me that become a spy of my thoughts, of how I feel, or I woke up today because we had training last night.
Yeah.
And I'm stiff, and I go, okay, now I'm also a spy of my body, right? Like how it feels, and
Right.
and so the concept of spirituality to me is being constantly checking in with myself. It's not like I'm
It's not a judgment. Yeah. That's right.
It's not a judgment.
It's an analysis.
It's an understanding of myself.
Yeah.
That is spirituality to me.
Like looking at yourself with empathy and just by realizing what's missing, what happened,
Yes.
why it's happening. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I like that. That's very cool. That's why I thought I'd ask you about that. That's awesome.
We went off the script, eh?
We went. No. We didn't.
Which is cool. It's cool.
Man, I actually
Don't
have
tell me. Yeah, they were the question.
spirituality.
Like, what's the spirituality?
No, I didn't.
Of course.
No, but I
Yeah.
love touching on those things as you mentioned it, because like I said, I mean, this doesn't mean anything. I wrote some bullet points.
Me too. Yeah.
I wrote some bullet points because I knew I wanted to ask you about some things. But these conversations about meaning and happiness and dealing with pressure and stuff, that applies to like you said, to everybody. Like this podcast is watched by a fighter, a CEO, a designer, whoever, and all these things that help any one of these people. So that's why I like touching on them, because
Cool.
like you said, I've grabbed so many concepts and things from other disciplines and applied them to what I do, which is not necessarily sport, but I almost treat my work, like I mentioned to you, I treat my work as a sport.
Yeah. Are you gonna do a podcast about yourself, or like not about yourself, but are you gonna do a podcast to you?
I don't know. People actually
thought
ask me about that.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I realize is that people listen to me interviewing people, but they don't actually know who I am yet.
Yeah.
Because people ask me like, man, you should actually make a podcast about who you are and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, of course.
Because to me, at this point, my purpose is to showcase my guests, to showcase what these people like. I'm calling undeniable people are. It's people that I admire, people that I want to learn from. But I don't really focus it on me. I don't really want to do that.
But the way people listen to, you know, as CEOs and you know, comedians and football players and whatever, they want to know as well everything that is underneath or behind a podcast. But podcast is just probably one small element of you. As well.
100%. Yeah. I'm gonna start doing that a little bit more.
Cool.
There's some work that I'm doing to just trying to showcase even my story, because I tell bits of my story in this episode and that episode.
Everyone has got a story to tell.
But yeah, I will start doing that. And I like that you asked, because a lot of times I ask people as they come to the podcast, I ask them like, you can ask me if you want anything, but a lot of times people don't ask.
Yeah.
I love football. And one of the things I love it as a sport, like I mentioned, but also everything that happens behind sort of the scenes in terms of the way that is evolving, business dynamics are changing a lot, even the way that the football players today, the high level football players today train differently because they're looking for a different type of physicality in the game. So the game as a whole is evolving a lot, right? You see a lot of, before you could see that little short guy, he plays on the left because he's very fast and can run a lot, whatever. Today, that dynamic is changing a lot, right? Football players now need to be a lot more physical than they used to be. Before, there was players that perhaps they just had natural talent and they didn't need that physicality. But today, that game is completely different, man. And football has evolved a lot, and it's just way, way, way more challenging as a sport in terms of the requirement that a footballer has today. So I want to ask you about a couple of things, and one is about your thoughts on the game today. You how old are you?
37.
Okay, so you're a little bit older than me. So you've seen more than me in terms of the game and the evolution of the game. What's positive about it? What's negative about it? If there's anything negative about it. And you could look at it from any angle, conditioning and physicality of the game, tactics, which had evolved a lot, but also the business side of things as well, because you've been sort of across the game. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a lot to cover there. I will probably start with, I think I don't see it much as in like what were the things that are positive or negative in football. I think it's the natural evolution of the game itself and what was required. Now, what do I think about going forward is in the past, we used to play, or football was played freely. Like not much tactics, not much formations, not much of it. Everyone was like free, like free spirit. Everyone was doing whatever the hell they want to do, right, on the pitch. Then it started to become a lot more tactical. And then to the point now that we are creating robots on the pitch. And I say we because I'm also coaching and sometimes I fall into that as well. Right. And I guess that's because we all follow the momentum of the game and the natural evolution of the game. Now, I do think in a few years, we will need to start producing players that can have that X factor. And what I mean by this is that people have stopped playing football on the streets, on the parks, like kids. Like I don't see kids playing football in the park, like at the park, because I don't know, because they go to football academy clubs, right? And then it gets to a point where in the academy they are like, that is structured football, and we are missing that other part where kids can be free, where they can create their own rules. And I remember when I was little, we were like, I was at the park for like 6 hours playing in the dark. There was not lights, and yet you create games, and it's the creativity side, right? But that, I don't think, again, this is happening only in football. This is happening in every field. Yeah. So we're killing that creativity side of humans in general. But now that we stick to football, it's that. So then I think the more we go in this way, we will keep creating these like football robots full of speed, because the science now is incredible. No wonder why players keep playing until the age of 40 and you know, and when in the past it used to be only up until the age of 32, 33. But anyway, so I think we need to start giving kids and young players a lot more freedom, but also parents, I'm not a parent, but parents should force them to be at the park playing football with their mates for hours. And I think we're going to fall into that point where everything is going to be extremely predictable, that one player that has got a little bit of an X factor will be called the next Messi, you know. So
man, I love what you just said about that. That's very, very, very interesting that you mentioned this, because I agree 100%. Now everything, all the tactics is all data driven, is all data, is all like, how can you make micro adjustment just to get the most performance?
Yes, and it's important as well, right? I love data. The first thing I do is when I finish the game is I go, okay, passes completed, this and that, GPS data, and all that. It's amazing, phenomenal. But you cannot lie to yourself inside on how you play, regardless of the data.
Right.
There's like, for example, it happened like 3 or 4 games ago. I remember I was talking to one of the coaches for Auckland United, the club I play for, and he was like, "Oh, your numbers, your stats were very high," and I said, "No, but I play shit. I didn't play well. I lost a lot of balls that usually I don't lose in critical areas, and yes, I scored 2 goals, but that put the stats high and all that. But you cannot lie to yourself."
That's a good point. Yeah.
But in other games, I didn't score, and I know I play well, but I didn't score and we didn't win. So then where does that go? And the stats were not as high. But then, you know,
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think, so we need to start creating or educating players to have that X factor a little bit more, that freedom.
Yeah, that's right. And also, if you create that X factor, then you also, learn to disrupt the mechanism that we're creating, right? With all these very structured tactics or whatever. Like you said, once you have that freedom and that creativity, that X factor, you disrupt the entire thing because it's unpredictable. And that's what you want to create. You want to create unpredictability, something that you can't predict.
The chaos.
The chaos is the beauty and the chaos, right?
And that's the beauty of football at the same time.
Yeah, that's why Ronaldinho was to me, Ronaldinho is my goal. Is the kid is when I watch Ronaldinho play, I would just be like in awe, because to me he was not just absolute talent and scoring goals and doing it, but it was just creativity. It was happiness. It was a bunch of different things that I think I've never seen in a player. And from my generation, like I love Messi, Ronaldo, they're amazing players, but Ronaldinho to me is like the encapsulation of what football should be, in my opinion. Of course, without the partying and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but also that comes,
but that's what gives him.
Gives him exactly.
That's what gives him who he is. You know?
Yeah, the character, right? Ronaldinho without the partying is not Ronaldinho.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a very good point.
It's very simple, right?
Yeah, that's very true. He's to me the my idol forever. And when I have a kid, like, you have to watch Ronaldinho highlights first. You have to know who this guy is. He's the GOAT to me.
Maybe I will tell him, if you have a kid, don't tell him watch Ronaldinho. Tell him to go to the park and then just...
That's true. That's true. I am gonna have a kid, so that's why I'm picking your brain as a coach.
Okay, cool. Yeah, show him the podcast. Maybe show him the podcast and go, hey, listen
to this. Yeah. Hey man, this has been really interesting. We've done an hour and a half already. I don't know if you realize that. It's been here for a while.
Cool. It's a good moment to have a... Can I?
Yeah. Go dig in.
Arepa. With mate, I don't know how it works. We might be flying tonight.
I'll just have a little bit of water, and then it should be all good. Man, I like what you said about the landscape, because I agree with that. Like, of course, as any game.
I'm struggling to open this.
You can have this one.
I have all the. That's it. Good.
As any game evolves, and even this happens in martial arts. I'm also a big fan of mixed martial arts, and as the sport evolves, then you now have people that are micro-analyzing fighters in order to create proper strategies, for example. So, but all boils down to that thing about being unpredictable when in this very data-driven and data-heavy world that we live in right now. And this happens for everything, right? Even creating a product, right? If you create a product, you want to create disruption. You want to be the wild fucking card, right? Not the predictable. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, this is a need, and okay, yeah, we got it. But then sometimes some products come out and you're like, whoa, what is this, right? So that's I love that. I love what you said about that. Now, we talked about dealing with pressure. Do you ever, doesn't seem that this would apply to you, but I ask because it's something that potentially could contaminate. Sometimes it's required, but it's also is something you have to learn to deal with, and that's ego. And again, as you become a key player in a team, even a corporate team or in a football pitch, these things play a part in the way that you start to approach things, relationships, everything. And I've talked to some football players that is one of the biggest sort of challenges. I wouldn't say, I don't know if challenge is the right word, but it's one of the biggest things that they work on is the fact that they have to work with the ego, right? CEOs, same thing, right? You have an entire company, hundreds and hundreds of people looking up to you. You have to be confident, but at the same time, sometimes, you're vulnerable as well, but you have to maintain this sort of ego that could be disruptive as well. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts in terms of ego and the management of that inside the pitch?
That's a good question. And first, I think ego to me is not walking like you own the pitch. Ego to me comes in different masks. You can be this arrogant. You can be ego can also be playing as the victim. That's also the ego.
That's very true.
It's a different mask, right?
That's a really true.
You can walk in life always as the victim, and that's your ego. You can be
100.
walking in life as this extremely humble human being that wants to save the planet, the animals, and absolutely, which I don't think is wrong. That I'm not touching that topic, but so ego comes in a lot different mask.
Yes.
And to play football, because we're talking about football, but in general, to me in life, we do need ego. We do need arrogancy.
Yes.
As long as it's kept in check.
Yes.
And I always speak about healthy ego, healthy arrogancy.
Yes.
You need that.
You need it, yeah. That's
You
right.
need that. I'm aware of the different masks, or I try to be aware of the different mask of the ego that I have in my career in different years. I probably had different egos. Same with the arrogancy. And then we go back to that like the concept of spirituality, right? Like how do I spy the way I feel and all that? When I start having all these thoughts about, fuck, I'm good, buddy. Hey, I can score 2 or 3 goals easy every weekend and do this and do that, and like all these things. But because I do have those thoughts.
Yeah, of course.
But there's a lot of times where I also have the thoughts of, I'm not made for this.
Yeah.
I'm not, I play shit, and I start doubting myself,
That's right.
or I play with fear, or all these things, because we all go through that, through those processes.
Yes, that's right.
So again, that goes back to how to deal with those things. And as long as we are aware, because I think one of the hardest things in life is to realize what is going on.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I do realize it all the time, of course not, or not even probably most of the time, but that's my exercise, to realize what is happening, how I'm feeling, where I'm going to, what is going on. And that's my daily exercise, to try to realize what is happening. Someone said, what's the hardest thing about cooking? It's not the actual cook. It's deciding what to eat.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right? Because then you just go there now on internet, you follow a recipe, and then you just follow step 1, 2, 3, 4, then that's it, right? So it's deciding what to eat. But you have 100 million options. Well, realizing what is going on, or how you feel, or understanding yourself, or realizing about this big ego and arrogancy this weekend, or the next weekend, this victimization or the victimhood or humbleness, or whatever shape and form ego comes, is probably the hardest thing. And that's the time where I go, okay, how do I keep in check? I score 2, 3 weeks in a row, and gosh, it's like keeping them on a rein, right? Like keep the ego on a leash, because then it's when it fits itself, scoring goals and this and that, and then people around you are coming like, oh, you're like, you're scoring goals and all this, and then but when you don't score, all this happens, and now you go, oh, I'm not as good. I let the team down. I did this, I did that. I didn't help the team. And then you don't score for 2 games, 3 games, 4 games. And then that ego is not that confident, cocky, arrogant one. Now it's a different one, right? So again, it's trying to keep as much as possible in check the ego, the arrogancy. But not only for football, like in general, in your relationships, in with your friends, with your partner, with your family, the way you approach things, and the way you relate to people in general, or your relationship with yourself too.
Yes, man, 100%. I agree with you. I've asked this question to CEOs, and their answer was precisely what you mentioned, in terms of sometimes to be able to do extraordinary things, you have to have a certain level of arrogance, and you have to have some sort of ego to give you that confidence to boost you to do something extraordinary. And so that's important. But I love what you said about that the ego comes in different forms, because that's very true too. Love that. Let me ask you, do you want to ask me anything, by the way? I've got a bunch of points here, but was there anything in your mind that you came here and then you, oh man, I wish he asked me about this? Or I want to talk about this. What's been going through your mind in the last couple of days that might be? There you go. That's my question. What has been in your mind for the last couple of days that you think you could explore with somebody while you're talking?
First of all, I was curious about what sort of questions you were going to ask. And then I thought, okay, well, what is something that you 100% are going to ask? It's obviously about football, my journey and all that, but this. And then I go, maybe, I don't know, anecdotes about football or what mate is, for example. You know what? I was actually prepared.
Oh, really?
If you ask me what mate is and maybe to explain to people what are the benefits. I'll actually show you. Look, I'll pull up. I'll pull out my phone because I have it on the photos. Mate is such an icebreaker in other cultures.
Right.
In a change room is an icebreaker. When you go to a meeting, it's an icebreaker, but you have to be outside of Argentina, let's say, because we have mate, or outside of South America, because everyone knows what it is, right? So mate becomes this icebreaker, this moment of intimacy with whoever you are sharing with.
Wow.
But at the same time, it's an intimate moment with yourself. When I have mate by myself, it's kind of like my friend, right? So and then in football, it's mental. So for example, in Argentina, when you go to a changing room, you are not allowed to bring your mate if you are new. Okay, it's not that you're not allowed. So let's say I was in the change room in Argentina, and we were 20 to 24 players in one change room. Right?
Yeah.
So I arrived, and as you said, I don't know where my spot is. I ease into it, checking all the personalities, all the egos, arrogancy, all of them in different shape and form, like Winnie Pooh form and Goku and Incredible Hulk and whatnot. Like everyone has got different names. Right? And then suddenly I see 6 mates.
Okay.
Around, and in everyone that's got a mate, or every person that had a mate had a group of about 3 or 4 people around, right? So I come in and I go, okay, cool, interesting. So I sat where I had at my spot. But the thing is, I wasn't sharing mate with the people around me. I had to go share mate with the people across the change room, because you are not allowed to change groups either. So this is Argentina change room, right? And mate. Wow, this is the relationship in between mate and change room, right? So then suddenly I was sitting in a group with 7, 8 people sharing the same mate, which is normal, right? And one day I was like, mate, I just want my mate. Like by the time you go in the circle, because that's the other thing, right? You have to go in circle.
That's right.
You can't skip people and whatnot. Like you have to go in a circle. And if you skip someone, sorry, you miss your turn. You have to wait to come back in that circle, right? And it's always the same person, the one serving the mate and all that. So, yeah, and I was like, mate, if you skip a mate, I'm sitting here for 13 minutes waiting for you to just, So one day I brought my mate, and in the group, none of them had mate with me. I was drinking mate by myself.
Wow.
And they were like, no, why you do that? Like, that is no common. I'm like, yeah, but I don't care. Like, I want my mate. So anyway, it was kind of like in a joking way, but not really. One of those.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought they were joking at the beginning, but clearly no. So I went through 2-3 weeks drinking mate by myself until one of their group got angry at the one serving, because he skipped like 2 turns and he was like, fuck this, I'll have mate with you. And then he broke the rule. And then
you became the enabler now.
And then suddenly the 8 of us were having 2 mates. So we split the group into 2. So that's a little bit of, the mate rules, mate tradition and all that. So mate became this moment of intimacy, relationships, and it's when you put a mate in between 2 people, it's to converse, it's to get to know
Right.
Not only to get to know each other, but it's to actually talk, to socialize, to feel that you belong somewhere. And those are like the underlying things, and from a human point, right?
Yeah.
And then you have all the health benefits that I'll tell you, because I was prepared for that question. Now that you say, but it gets that it says stimulation for fat burning and appetite suppression.
Appetite suppression. I've remember that. You don't feel as hungry when you have in.
Yes. Then you have blood sugar regulation, thermogenic properties, enhancing metabolic rate.
Wow.
Rich in antioxidants and essential nutrients. And this one is pretty cool. Neuroprotective effects on dopaminergic neurons.
Okay.
So it says, notes that yerba mate might protect dopamine producing neurons, which are crucial for regulating movement and motivation.
Wow.
So, and that's and amongst others, right? Those are like the cool ones. That's why I put them in here.
That's pretty cool.
But lately, like in the last 10 years or so, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists have started using mate like this, like the flask and the mate, to treat people with mental health issues.
Right.
From depression, anxiety, stress.
Right.
And it became part of the treatment.
Yeah.
And that's
incredible, dude. I remember being because I never look all these things that you're sharing, because I used to drink mate like I mentioned, but honestly, I've never understood any of these things that you're mentioning. My relationship with that was just, this is a nice drink.
Yeah.
And I would just drink it by myself. So it's actually very cool that you explain all of this, but it did have this effect. The way I liked it, one of the reasons why I liked it was because it created this sort of disconnection with whatever you were doing when you were just serving it. Like it was a process. Like it was I don't know if you've ever been to Japan, but when they do the green tea, it was sort of the same thing. It's like this thing where you have to connect with this very simple thing, but it's just you and that's it. And it's actually quite a long process for a very small cup. For people who are listening,
exactly,
they don't actually understand that it takes a little bit of what you're doing there. I think I have it on camera, but I'll put it on what you do, and then you have to serve and you drink just a little bit.
Yes,
and you have to do this over and over again. So it makes sense to me that it can help people with a lot of things in terms of just this repetitive thing that you do, where you have to be very present. You have to do this very meticulously. Same happen with you drink green tea in Japan. It's an art. Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
And that's what the therapists and the professionals understood from this.
Yeah, right.
Because let's say it does have caffeine, but very, very little.
Okay.
Caffeine. Well, I mean, if you drink the whole flask, this is just hot water. But if you drink the whole flask, it is like a cup and a half of coffee. The thing is, you have a cup and a half of coffee in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you get the high and the low.
Yeah. It's like
and then you crash, right? Yeah. When you have mate, you have a little bit of caffeine, and then you are constant in this sort of like
a flow state, sort of
flow states, and but what is to me the best thing about it is when you're working, or let's say you're working by yourself, or you are studying, or whatever you're doing, and you have a mate, you stop what you do. You have to stop what you do.
That's very true. You kind of just go like this.
You can't be like coding. Let's say you're a developer. You can't be coding and doing this because it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So you have to stop what you do, and in order to pour the water,
you have to
engage, and you become present.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They realized that, and that's why they use it now as in like a way to treat depression, anxiety, and stress, and whatnot. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bro, that's really interesting. See, that's why it's good to ask you where I didn't have mate as my questions.
Good.
But that's such a good thing to talk about. And one of the things that's interesting is that in Colombia, a lot of people always think, the guys that now in Colombia carrying a mate in Colombia, Oh, those are the guys that play in Argentina, like Quintero. You know, he
Yeah,
played in
yeah.
River Plate or whatever.
And the football players.
Yeah,
No, it
football-
became
because-
massive.
Yeah, because
Massive.
they go to Argentina and they experience all these things that you're talking
Yeah.
about, and then they keep that tradition now for them.
Yeah.
Do you do this at home as well?
The mate.
Yeah, like at home with your family. Is
Oh
this-
yeah, like I drink mate every day.
Right.
Like every day, whether I'm with people or not.
Right.
And that's another cool fact about mate that usually, in your group of friends, you always have the person that does the mate, and usually it's the same person that does it.
All right.
Well,
I see.
That's probably the only thing I do with my group of friends. You have the one that
You're the guy
in
who-
Argentina. We have the one that does the barbecue, and no one can touch the
100
barbecue.
I was just gonna say
Yes.
that the barbecue's like that. Like
It's-
there's the
it's-
guy who does the barbecue, and you
Yeah.
don't dare to get near that barbecue.
Exactly, and everyone's got their own signature, right? But if
right.
that person is not there, someone else takes their place. But you have
Like a hierarchy.
Exactly. Well, with mate is that, but also in my family. In my
see.
family was my grandma.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and then in the mate it says here it says Kela. That's my grandma's name.
Oh, wow.
And she was the one that introduces to mate, and she will, I don't know, get a hot water in a flask, and will gather people around her, and then suddenly all the grandchildren are there having mate with her, and then the neighbors come in. You know, in Argentina, you sit on the sidewalk outside
yeah,
to
yeah.
just
To just check.
gossip.
Yeah.
It's just gossip, right?
That's the right word. I didn't want to say gossip, but it is gossip.
gossiping. Gossiping made humans what we are today. Gossiping is probably one of
It's
the
life. In South
it's
America,
life.
gossiping is life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and she will sit there, and then I used to be amazed by how people will come to her for mate.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And I took that from her, and then I became probably the second in the hierarchy in my family.
Wow.
My dad was not the one that would pour the mate,
So
and it was me.
You got this straight from your grandmother.
So I don't know if I took her, I've stolen, or
Well,
she
you
gave it to me,
inherited,
but
let's say like that.
let's
Let's-
put it that way.
Yeah.
So in my family, then it was me. So, but if I'm not there, it's one of my sisters, and I'm not there. My other
this
sister-
is awesome. This
Yeah,
is
it's
awesome.
pretty cool.
Oh,
It's
now
pretty
I wanna get that mate even more now.
Yeah,
After
definitely,
understanding
definitely.
this. So yeah. I'm gonna definitely get one. This is called bombilla, right?
Yes, the straw.
And
yeah.
then what do you call the actual? It's just the mate.
Mate. We
It's
call it
called
mate. The
mate.
whole thing is mate, but
call-
the cup is mate as well.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And the herbs, we call it sherba, which is
Yeah,
translation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Amazing, dude. I love this topic. But before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, man, what are your thoughts on the football fever that now is here in Auckland with this whole Auckland FC? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Did you ever thought like, man, this is something that should have happened earlier? Because the way I see it is, I find that it's an amazing opportunity, especially for kids that perhaps didn't sort of see a career in football in New Zealand. It's just light in terms of that. Because I don't know if you agree with me, but I always felt that it was so difficult for a kid that wanted to pursue a career in football, being in a country like New Zealand. They had to probably move overseas. In a similar manner, how in Colombia, if you really were serious about football, you go to Argentina. Like James Rodriguez, for example, he was like 16 years old. They really wanted him to succeed in football. They take him to Argentina because they knew that he was going to have more opportunities there. In New Zealand, I almost felt the same way. I was like, man, if a kid wants to actually play professionally in the elite level, they have to almost like take him to England or take him to a different place because the exposure here is pretty low. And this Auckland FC stuff that's happening, which I mean, before was with the Wellington Phoenix, but now it's just bigger. And I think is such a positive thing in terms of creating that ecosystem for kids to actually now they connected with Phil Foley, which is the owner, has clubs in England. They have the full academy sort of connection, all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Auckland used to have a club in the A
the
League
Black Knights, and they had
years
another
ago,
club.
and probably didn't go well or as well from a business point of view.
From a business point of view, yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Then the Phoenix came along, and now the Auckland FC. To me, it's massive from the football point of view.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the results help on to create this hype, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I literally don't understand, and I said it with like a lot of respect, how a club can be created from scratch, from zero, from not having absolutely one person. It didn't even exist 2 years ago, to have the campaign that they did this year. I do not understand. Like, I don't think there's precedent in this.
No.
I don't think.
No, I don't think
and
so
that
either.
is phenomenal. It is incredible. And I was talking to one of the like the coaching staff, and I asked him like, mate, like what do you think it is? Like, it my mind does not comprehend, because I thought they were going to struggle
Same.
a few years, and everyone thought that, right?
Yeah.
And
Which would be the natural progression.
the
of-
natural and he said, we have a good bunch of good people in the change room, and that struck me, you know. And we got back in our conversation today, and we talked a lot about that, you know, like being a person, like a good human being before a football player. He said, a good bunch of people, like they are good people, but also they have work ethics, and also they have clicked. The foreigner players have clicked, and on top of that, yes, they do have talent, a lot of talent, but sometimes talent in itself doesn't do anything. In
Correct,
football.
yeah.
You can have the most talented 2-3 strikers and not score a single goal because they don't click. They don't have that dynamic and connection and whatnot. So, and I was like, wow, that's fascinating, right?
It is.
I do hope that this continues and gives New Zealand a bit more of an exposure in the sport. But also having the All Whites going to the World Cup next year, this is the time and the momentum to fall in love with the sport a little bit more. But for that, we also need the people, meaning like New Zealand culture doesn't have the fanatism about, I guess, anything
support,
or like, you know, people won't go their way, out of their way to go watch Auckland FC or the Phoenix and all that, like only a few. But imagine if this gets a lot more momentum, and then we get the people involved and the whole culture and society, and we actually see what can happen and what can come out of this. It will be pretty cool. And I'm not talking just about Auckland FC and the Phoenix. I'm talking about, you know, all the clubs that support these two clubs.
That's what I'm
because
excited about.
That's the actual job. That's where everything is coming from. Like
That's
a
right.
lot of these players have played at
Auckland City and stuff like that.
and yes, so how can we support this ecosystem underneath?
Yeah.
In a way that, yes, we can feed the Auckland FC and the Phoenix, but you ultimately make these leagues a lot more powerful.
That's correct.
To grow, but not only because it's football, but because it's sport. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's healthy, and having the kids from a young age, practicing sport and learning life skills.
Correct.
Like how to be in a group, how to behave, and not how to behave like being just a good boy or a good girl,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about how to learn how to communicate, to be with people, to be with people from other cultures,
To be in a team. There's so many.
Yeah.
And actually, now that you mentioned that, man, I love what you said, because that's what I'm also excited about. And like I said, I'm gonna have a kid, and of course, I would like the kid to play football just because I like football, but also they have to like football. But one of the things
It's got no chance.
It's got
It's
wife,
got no choice.
My
It's got
wife
no
say,
choice.
"What if he doesn't like football?" I'm like,
It will. Don't worry about it. It will.
"Don't worry about it." And she keeps going. She's like, "What if he likes cricket?" I'm like,
no.
there is no possible way that you would like cricket. Anyways, my point was that I'm excited because of all these things that you said, is that they building this, first of all, agree 100%, is unprecedented what happened. Right? I've been to many games in the stadium, and I still cannot believe when I see the stadium, the amount of people that are there. Because as you know, before, you went to even a rugby game, which is like the big sport here, right? And the stadium's still empty. And then suddenly this club comes in and they pack in the stadium constantly. I'm like, whoa, this is incredible. But what I was excited about was the ecosystem, like you said, like the clubs that are in the other leagues, in the domestic league, sort of just getting so much more power now, so much more. The kids will just want to be part of the ecosystem now that they see this, right? They can go to a stadium and watch. Because that's one thing I talked to my wife about. I said to her that I learned so much about life while playing football.
Yes.
Because I remember there were so many things, and I had amazing coaches when I was in Colombia that teach you about working as a group, about positivity, about even manners, man. Like, you learn so much, especially if you're in a good club. You learn so much about life while playing football. And that's why I said to her that, to me, is not even just about making my kid play and become a professional football player. It's all these little things, but it's all these little things that you learn in while being in a locker room, right? Being a teammate, bonding with kids, skills that you learn that you then apply to your professional life.
Yes.
So you coaching now, what is that like for you? What is next for you? What you're excited about in terms of your career? What do you expect to do in the next 5 years? What are your dreams and ambitions in that field?
So from a coaching point of view, I'm coaching the under 23s and the under 17s at Auckland United.
Oh, nice.
And what I do speak a lot about is what we've been talking in the podcast today. Yes, I do touch a lot in the tactical side of the game. Yes, the football components, of course, like the body shape but I do talk to them about the work ethics, but also creating good habits, and good habits outside of football. And I don't get tired, and they know I don't get tired of talking about being a good person before a football player. Right. And that's my message most of the time to them around around having communication skills, on like, oh, I can't train today because of this or that. Like, let the communication skills, the work ethics, creating good habits, but also I try to give them tools. Like, for example, the meditation or the yoga or the journaling, and that will help them to cope and navigate not just football but life in general.
That's right. Especially at that age.
Especially at that age, and especially in New Zealand, because of we all know the stats. Being on the pitch, being on the ground, and whether I'm playing or training or whether I'm coaching, it's what I really enjoy and I'm very passionate about. To wrap up about what could happen in the next 5 years and ambitions and all that, I don't work that way in my life.
Take it one step at a time.
I tried like a long time ago to do that, but always life had something different planned. Like I never planned to be in New Zealand. I came to New Zealand. I never planned to become a football player and became a football player. Or going back to Argentina to play professionally, or going to South Africa and like all this. I've never. So then I got to a point where I got tired of like the planning. And or the
vision,
the vision and all that. And I go again on a daily basis. I check. And then we go back to that. And then I go, okay, well, now maybe it's time for this. And then I start exploring that idea and I give it a go. And I explore this idea and I give it a go. And I'm more of that type. And I think things will come.
Do you still have a bit of that spirit of that 21-year-old that came, that just wanted to experience culture?
Yes, 100%.
You still have that inside?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Every now and then-
that's probably the anchor of all this sort of
Yes,
whole process.
as well. Like I don't want to let it go, but
Yeah.
and I think football gave me that as well, the curiosity to spend time in a changing room with people from other cultures and where they're coming from and their backgrounds and all that.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the next
We'll
5
see.
years? And
That's the
I don't
answer.
know, maybe
We'll see.
Maybe when you have 1 million followers and listeners, then maybe we can schedule it now and we put it in the calendar. We put it in the calendar. 5 years from now, 2030, we
We'll
do the next one.
Exactly.
We do the next one.
Exactly. Let's do that. I love that, man. That's pretty cool. Hey, man, thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks so much for coming here, sharing Martin with me. I do want to do a thing that I do with all my guests, which I almost forgot, which is the soundboard. So what you have right here in front of you is
Yes.
a bunch of little buttons. Behind these little buttons is just a bunch of questions. Some of the questions are funny.
Cool.
Some of the questions are
Love it.
philosophical. Just tap whatever you feel like it.
Do the emojis mean? It's got a meaning behind, because if I see a brain there, it will be probably about knowledge. That one, maybe something related to films.
Yep, potentially.
Are they related to them?
Yep, in some sort of way.
Okay, there's a pizza slide there. There's a baby. That one is like a person meditating. So maybe we talked about that. Maybe I'll pick this one. Let's
If
see.
you could relive one moment in your life exactly as it happened, which moment would it be?
Ooh,
That's a good question. I think Lucas got that question, actually.
did he?
Yeah, he did. Shout out Lucas, by the way.
Okay, yeah, shout out to Lucas, yeah. And he's an Argentinian at heart.
That's why we were mocking him about the other day.
Yes.
We were playing football,
He's
and he
an
had a Messi
Argentinian.
shirt on, and we're like, oh.
He knows, I tease him.
And that's after Argentina put like 4 goals on Brazil. Like,
Yeah, we were chatting during the game. And he says, "Oh, if Argentina wins today, I'll get an Argentinian shirt." And
he got one.
he got one.
got one.
Maradona, 1994.
Yes, it's an amazing
World
shirt.
Cup, unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
okay, the question.
If you want, we can do another one while you think about that one.
Okay, I'll go with this one.
If you could collaborate with any person, dead or alive, who would it be and what would you create?
Very straight, like to play with Maradona and Messi. Imagine I'll play as a number 9 and I just let them do their thing. That will be it.
Oh, perfect. All right. Do you want to go back to that one, or do you want to choose a different one?
The Sundays with my family,
Yeah.
but the Sundays when I was little, like
Yeah.
when I was 6, 7 years old, when you had your
Cartoons.
whole family
Yeah.
coming every Sunday.
Oh, when you had like your cousins and all of that coming over.
Yes,
Yeah.
when
yeah.
you are in your house and it's Sunday, and from 9 o'clock in the morning, they're already making the fire for the barbecue, and it's and you spend the whole day.
Yeah.
And then you have cousins, friends, your grandma, your parents, and these your aunties, uncle, and then it's like 20 people, and then like those Sunday family when I was little, those are like very, very special moments that got stuck with me.
All right, man. Last one. We are gonna invoke here. Hi, ChatGPT. I'm here with Emiliano Tade. He's a football player, and we're just wrapping up the podcast. We've been talking a lot about different things: football, meditation, mindset. And I thought I'd just call you in to see if you want to ask him a question and surprise him.
Ah, what a treat. Emiliano, it's a real honor. You've been out there grinding on the pitch, but also doing the inner work. That combo's powerful. Here's one for you. When you're in that high stakes moment, whether it's a penalty, a crucial tackle, or even just walking onto the pitch with thousands watching, what goes through your mind? And how has meditation or your mindset work shaped the way you handle those intense situations? I'd love to hear where that mental discipline meets the chaos of the game.
Wow, I have to say how you brought AI and the news thing, the new toys, right, into the podcast. It's very, very, very cool. Very cool. That's a big shout to you. The the idea and the creativity to bring that. That's pretty cool.
Thank you, man. Thank
I have
you.
a lot of respect for people that are very creative and they do these things. And,
Yeah.
And to that question, penalties, I absolutely love
Really?
the pressure
Oh my goodness.
in a penalty spot.
Bro, I never take a penalty.
Penalties
Why do you love the pressure of that?
I don't know. I've been asked that question a lot and I literally don't know, but I absolutely love it. Every year I change the way I take the penalties. Every year I change the spot where I take the penalties.
Have you missed penalties?
Yes, I actually don't know how many penalties I took. Probably more than 50, 60
Wow.
penalties in my career, and missed one
Wow, really?
that it hit the crossbar, and it got disallowed because I touched the ball again. And that one I missed, but saved penalties that I remember 3, and I remember very well the goalkeepers too.
Wow, that's really
Yes. Yeah, 2 of them I played with, and then
Oh no.
Yeah, that's it.
They
Yeah,
knew you
but
a little
3.
bit too much.
yes. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I love the adrenaline of that moment. The moment from when the penalty's been considered, to go grab the ball, to walk to the penalty spot, to put the ball in there. Then there's a lot of noise as well because sometimes a yellow car or a red car or people are still complaining, why is that a penalty? And you're already with the ball waiting in the penalty spot. I love that feeling. And I always go into a game wishing
That there's a penalty.
that there's a penalty.
That's awesome.
Like I enjoy, and I don't know what it is. It's the adrenaline,
It's the pressure. I think the pressure.
the moment. Yeah, it
Because
must
potentially, I mean, a penalty is like a high pressure moment, isn't it? It's
yes,
like,
but I don't. I feel pressure in other moments than the penalty. I don't know why the penalty I take it as a game.
wow. Okay.
I take it as a game, and I take it like it's a mental game. Sometimes I play with the goalkeepers. Sometimes I tell them something.
Have you ever Panenka a goalkeeper?
Only once.
You have?
And that's the one that I missed. A fucking idiot.
I always think when you people Panenka,
And
I'm
I
like,
did
man,
it
that's
I did it on a final.
No.
We were losing in the final. We were losing in the final. It was 4-2. We were losing 4-2. And it was literally the last minute of the game. The last minute of the game. There was no chance we could have equalized the game at all.
Oh, I see.
And the thing is, the goalkeeper, I already took a penalty that game, and I scored the first one. And the goalkeeper knew me very well. And I never done the Panenka, but I would not do a Panenka when winning.
Yeah. Right.
I find it very disrespectful.
Right.
I find it disrespectful. I don't do disrespectful things when that team, when we are winning 3-0, I don't try to go nutmegs and do these things. I just don't. Those things you have to do it when the stakes are high.
Right.
And in that moment, I was like, I run out of ideas to where I take the penalties. Oh no, it's not that I ran out of ideas, but I was like, hey,
Something like you were trying to do something unpredictable.
yeah.
Essentially.
And probably that's why I missed, because it's something I never
Did
done
you
before.
Panenka to the middle or to a side?
No, it was to the middle,
to the
and it hit the crossbar, and I feel pressure in other moments, but not in the penalty. So,
Wow. That's awesome.
and to that answer is, how do I deal with that? Again, is through all the practices. It's what you do off the pitch.
Off the pitch, right? Yeah.
On the pitch, you have no time.
Yeah.
On the pitch, there's no thought process. There's no this, that. There's no. It's what you do the other 6 days and 22 hours in the week
Leading up to that moment.
leading up to the game.
Yeah.
That is what matters. What you do on the rest of the week.
That's amazing, man. Far out. One thing we didn't talk about, but I wanted to ask you before you leave.
Yeah,
and it's about because for me, when I play football, right, and whenever we have to play like a really good side, I feel like super pumped, right? Like when you played the World Cup, what was it like for you going in and facing these amazing people you admire? Like, how do you approach those moments? That's what I'm trying to say.
The thing is, from New Zealand, going to play against these big players that earn, we're talking about millions, and some of them are in a completely another level.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's unachievable for the average normal football player, human being. It's no time to be scared because you stand no chance. I mean, not to the point that no chance, but you got to be realistic, right? And that helps me. That helps me to go.
Like, take that pressure off you, essentially.
That takes the pressure because you're the underdog. If you lose, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're meant to lose.
Yeah.
But if you win, that's the thing. And it's what happened in 2014 when we finished third. We were playing those games with zero pressure.
Yeah.
Zero. The pressure was on them.
Yeah.
Right? But it was once off. And the rest of the games, or most of the games, they were way above our level. And they had to, you also need to understand that they have to have a really bad day.
Yeah.
And we have to have our best
Amazing
day.
day, yeah.
And then we will, whoa, we have a chance here. Maybe we can get a, but, you know. and those games, I always took it as in, as a gift from football, from life.
Yeah.
And I always just enjoy them.
Enjoy the
yes,
moment.
that doesn't take away the competitive animal side of us.
Yeah.
And to go and compete and just try to compete, right? Like, just compete.
Yeah.
Don't try fancy things, trying to win games and do spectacular things to show the world. No. You just have to go there and compete at your level.
The
Right.
best you can.
But compete.
Right. Amazing, man. Oh, I can only imagine. But yeah, like you said, I think when you're in those moments, it's just about appreciating that moment. It's not really thinking
Yes.
about that.
Yeah.
But man, what a journey you had. Thanks you for coming over. Like you said, we'll probably do it again in some years.
In 5 years. We say 5 years,
In some
2030.
years. Yeah. We'll probably do it again. And maybe before that, when you reach some new height and you got some new stories to tell, I'm sure. We'll come back here, and then this is always
Cool.
going to be your house whenever you're ready. It was awesome to meet you. We didn't mention that when we meet for the first time.
Yes. Yes.
Shout out to Lucas, the Argentinian guy, for connecting us.
Yes, he knows. He knows at heart.
And yeah, man, thank you so much for coming through. Wish you nothing but the best. And for everybody who listened to this podcast, stay with us for all this time. Thank you very much. I hope you can get some inspiration or at least some thought-provoking things out of this conversation. And I'll see you on the next one. Remember to drink water and exercise, play football, go to the park, be creative, and peace. Thanks so much, bro.
Thank you.
Welcome to the next level.
Thank you for watching this episode of the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I'll leave you another episode here. And if you'd like to support us, visit themeldinnews.com. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.